Hi, I'm Dustin Weiniger. Whenever I get a new black powder firearm, I have a process I go through to prepare the gun for black powder use. And today, I'm going to share the process with you. This process is something that I do whenever I get a new firearm that I'll be using black powder in. I did it when I bought the Pieta replica of the Single Action Army. I did it on the Pieta replica of the 1851 Navy. And today I picked up a Uberti replica of the Colt Walker, and I'm going to walk you through the process today on that revolver. When you disassemble a brand new firearm, you'll find right away that it is loaded with oil from the factory so that it doesn't rust before it gets to the store and to make sure it's properly lubricated. The problem I have with that on a black powder firearm is that the oil they use is usually a petroleum-based oil, which I can tell by the smell this is. And I clean my black powder firearms with a combination of water and ballista, which is known as moose milk, and that petroleum-based oil repels the water. Now, I will be the first to admit, especially because I'm sure I'll read this in the comments, this is not entirely necessary to do this process. You could skip it and just wipe the bulk of that oil off, but when you go to clean the gun the first few times, I've found that if you skip this process, the cleaning can be a little bit gummy as the water tries to mix with the oil, and it makes a little bit more of a mess than what it needs to be. So I like to completely remove the oil, at least from most of the gun. Now this is as far as I'll disassemble it. I don't disassemble this for this process because normally I don't even disassemble that for cleaning except on rare occasions. So you get your gun disassembled to this point, and to start removing the oil, I just take a rag and first start just wiping off the bulk of it on all the parts of the gun until most of the oil is removed. So I'll just keep this up and I'll rejoin you again when I'm ready for the next step. Now that a lot of the oil has been removed just with a dry rag, I'm going to remove the rest with a cleaner and degreaser called crud cutter. Now, if you don't have access to this, it's not the only product that can be used. In the past, I've used Simple Green, and I've even just used rubbing alcohol, anything that serves as a degreaser that will get the oil off. So now I'm just going to lightly spray down each of these pieces so that it can start working on that oil and grease. Get inside the bore, get the chambers from both ends, the outside of the cylinder, the rammer, of course the frame and the arbor, hammer, just anywhere that you've got oil built up on the gun. Just give it a spray down. Now the smallest parts, like the screws and the nipples, I've just dropped into a cup with some of that crud cutter at the bottom, and I just slosh that around, let it get into all the holes and the crevices to make sure that's working all that oil out. You can already see the color of that is definitely dissolving the oil. So I'll just let that sit for a moment and then we'll start to wipe it off. All right, these parts have been soaking just for about 2 minutes or so is all. It doesn't take long. So now I'm just going to start wiping that crud cutter off, which leaves the metal, might be hard to see on camera, but it leaves it just pretty dry, which is what you want. You want the oil completely removed. It's easy to tell just by how well my fingerprints show up on it that it is dry. Even the oil on my skin is now showing up very well, which is good. Now for the chambers, those can be done just like when you're cleaning your gun. I'll just use patches and a cleaning jag on a cleaning rod. So nothing complicated at all. Crud cutter's been down inside of them soaking. So just like you would with gun solvent, just run a dry patch down into each chamber. Wipe the crud cutter out. You have a few chambers with each patch, and you can hear the squeaking. It is really getting dry in there. Grab another patch. That one's getting oily. All right, inside the chambers, it's done. It's nice and dry inside of there. Now right down the middle of the cylinder, where the arbor goes, you've got a big hole right through the middle of it, and I'm just going to push a dry rag down in there until it comes out the other end. This rag may not fit all the way through, but if it doesn't, you can just pull it back out the other side. Just pulling and getting everything dry down inside of that hole. Now for the top up here, where the nipples go, it's a little hard to reach with a rag, but a dry Q-tip will work. Just reach down into each one, just making sure you remove that crud cutter, which you can see brings the oil right out with it. And this is pretty fast, a lot faster than actually cleaning a gun. So now the cylinder is completely finished. For these other parts, it's just a matter of a quick wipe down. Rammer's dry. Again, you hear that squeaking on the metal, you know that you're getting rid of the oil. It's just dry metal now. Get the barrel. Just making sure all that crud cutter is pulled out. Some of this I'll do off camera. For instance, down in all the little tight areas, just use a dry Q-tip. Inside the bore, of course, you just do with patches as if you were cleaning the bore. So I'll start with a cleaning patch at the breech end. And just push that out, and you can see how much oil was in there, and that crud cutter is removing it. We'll do that a few more times. Getting better. I also like to put a patch right here where the arbor will be, because you can see there's a lot of oil inside of there as well. So just continue this, wiping everywhere where the crud cutter was, getting rid of all the oil until all your metal is dry. At this point, all the parts have been dried, so now we're down to just dry metal. The problem now is that the metal is relatively unprotected against things like rust, so that petroleum oil does need to be replaced by something, and the product that I use is ballista. So I'm just going to put some on a rag, just a generous amount, and just start wiping a good generous coat of this ballista on all these metal parts. You can see that immediate shine. And the thing about this ballista that's great for black powder shooting is that this will mix with water. So later, when the gun is dirty and I start putting water in it to clean it, the water won't be repelled. It will mix with this and get where it needs to go so that the gun does get clean. And then as the water evaporates, and of course I dry it too, but as it evaporates, this ballista is left behind, and it's a great rust preventer. Now for inside these chambers and inside the bore, of course you'll just use a cleaning patch, and I won't do that on camera, you'll know what to do. And a Q-tip down in the holes where the nipples will go. But just give the whole thing a wipe down with this ballista. I'm even going to add a little bit more to my rag. The gun is completely dry, so it will take a fair amount of this stuff to get it re-oiled properly. And I'm just going to continue this on all the parts until everything has been oiled with the ballista. Everything is now coated generously with the ballista, and it's been soaking on there for about 10 minutes. If you give the ballista a chance to soak like that, it actually penetrates the pores of the metal and leaves a very good protection and also lubricates. Now it's time to just wipe the excess ballista off, and I'll do that first in the chambers of the cylinder, just with a cleaning patch, just a dry patch, nothing on it. And I'll use one patch on about 3 chambers. Then I'm going to grab a new patch for the other 3. leaving a lot of ballistol behind. I don't know how well you can see that, but getting the excess off so it's not going to contaminate my gunpowder or anything like that. I'm also going to just run one patch through the bore dry to remove the excess ballistol from there, which you can see there is quite a bit soaked on there. And then with a fresh rag, I'll just start wiping down all the outsides of the parts. Again, leaving a coating of ballistol, but getting the majority and at least the excess wiped away. And I'll just continue this now until all the parts have been wiped down. Okay, everything is now re-oiled with the ballistol. I've put it back together, and now when I clean it after the first shooting session, the water is not going to be repelled away by petroleum oil. It's going to mix with that ballistol and be allowed to go where it needs to. And the ballistol, as I said, will just be left behind as the water's dried and protect it from rust. I'm just going to give it one more quick wipe down as it's assembled. And this gun is ready to go to the range. Well, as always, I hope you enjoyed the video and found it helpful. Please don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to the channel so you can see more videos. And thank you so much for watching.